All right, good evening and welcome to Shulchan Iyun. Today's simon is Simon Yud Aleph, number 11, Orach Chaim. We're going to be talking about the first halacha over here, which is relevant to other halachas. So it says in the first halacha, Chutin Sarach Shu Tuhuyin Lishman. The strings of your tzitzis, they have to be spun. Lishman, L'shem Chovcha, the Gemara says, in order, when you have in mind, the person who spins them has to do it L'shem Mitzvahs Tzitzis. The Ramah says, V'yesh Machmir Nafila Napsan Lishman, even to comb the hairs Lishman. The minhag is to be mekel, and Nipos doesn't need that. Sheyomar, the Tchilas Ha'tiva She'osa Vol L'shem Tzitzis. Later on in the Shulchan Aruch says, in Simon Beis, Sif Beis, he says at the end of Srichan Shazira, she's Zurun Lishman, they also have to be wound together, right? Each tzitzis string is two strings, two little threads that are wound together. It's supposed to be L'chatchila. I don't think this is Ma'akiv. And we'll get to the Simon Sif Hey, how it relates to this in a second, but the source of this, whether you need Tviyah Lishma, you need to be spun or not, or just to be Taloi Lishma, meaning that the tzitzis, when you put them, you attach them to the beged, you hang them from the beged, they have to be Lishma. That everyone agrees to. This is the source of this is a Gemara in Sukkah and Daf Teram and Aleph. The Gemara Menachos and Daf Mem Beis also brings the same Gemara. Towards the bottom of Teram and Aleph and Sukkah, the Gemara says, Beisel, Leistu, the Rabbi Yehuda Marav, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav, Asa, Min HaKotzin, Min HaNimim, Min HaGardim, Psula, Min HaSitzin Sheira. If you made it from a kotzin, or the niman or the garden, it's psula. What is that? So Rashi says, "Mina kotzin." These are all these three cases are talking about basically when you weave together a beggar that you make a talis, that you make for sitzis, that you attach a sitzis to. They used to leave over some strings at the end. They wouldn't weave it to the end. They weren't woven properly. You made a border, and some of the border, the strings were sticking out, or I guess, against things that were sticking out. These strings that were sticking out from the weave, it wasn't woven completely 100%. So you want to make that into tzitzis, make that into your tzitzis. So it's psula. So what's the reason it's psula? The Gemara explains, if you want to make it from a ball of yarn, a ball of string, right, that was not attached to the beged, that would be ksher according to Rav Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says, Shmuel requires it has to be spun, this thread also lishma, before you actually start weaving it into a beged, right? This comes out from this Gemara. It's clear that the tzitzis we're talking about are just the strands that are left over in the actual beged. It's completely attached to the beged itself. The Shulchan Aruch makes very clear in Simon Yud Aleph that we're talking about you make a hole in the knaf, in the corners of the tzitzis. You mark it 1 gudel within 1 gudel and 3 gudel from the ends. We call al knaf, and then you put tzitzis in the holes, and then you make a knot. From the Gemara, it's not clear that it's talking about. The Gemara, it really seems like it's talking about you have leftover strands, and you just make that into your tzitzis. You tie that and you fasten it to complete the weave of the beged, to make it a stronger beged. It has nothing to do with strings hanging down. For sure, there's no din that it has to be in a hole, an ala knaf. It has to be put in the beged itself, which seems to be at the end of this sim, and that's what the Shulchan Aruch talks about. Shmuel says the tzvi has to be the shema, and the Gemara says the reason is gdilim tasalach lach l'shem chov. It has to be for your chov lach, for your purpose, for the shem chovcha. So first of all, it seems from the Gemara that we paskin like Rav Yehuda. So you don't need Tviyah Lishma. The Shulchan Aruch passes you need Tviyah Lishma. So that's problematic, first of all, that we paskin like Shmuel over Rav. Usually we paskin like Rav B'Yisurim, Shmuel Dinim Aminis, Rav B'Yisurim. It's problematic. The Shulchan Aruch passes you need Tviyah Lishma. Secondly, the problem is that in Sif Hey, over here in the Shulchan Aruch, it's an interesting halacha that it quotes. It says, "Ein osin hatzitzios mehat semer hanechas bakotzim." This is the Shulchan Aruch quote. It's quoting a Rambam. You're not allowed to use wool to make the tzitzis, to make the strings, according to the Shulchan Aruch, from wool that was attached to the sheep that got stuck in the thorns while it was on the back of the sheep. Also strands that fell off the animal, the sheep. And he does include the Rambam. The last case is talking about when you're weaving the beged, you have strands that are left over. Atam mishum bizui mitzvah. It's mishum bizui mitzvah. Now, this is the source of this Rambam is exactly this Gemara. That's how he defines hakotzin. Kotzin are the thorns. Hanimin u'managarden is talking about bizui mitzvah. Not Rav's reason, who Paskin like seemingly, is not because of l'shem chovcha. It's you don't need l'shem chovcha at all, according to him. Only Shmuel would hold in that tzitzin that you need tviya lishma, but according to Rav, you don't even need anything lishma. You don't need tliya lishma. Is there even a din of tliya? What are we talking about? By tzitzis, it throws the whole concept of tzitzis on his head. Shulchan Aruch on the one hand, passages like the Rambam that learns this talking about bizui mitzvah, and at the same time is learning the Gemara is talking about lishma also. It's a little boggling the mind of what's going on over here. Also, the Shulchan Aruch mentions you have to make a hole and put tzitzis in the hole. I'd like to suggest just a deeper look into mitzvah of tzitzis. It says by the mitzvah of tzitzis, one of them mentions in Dvarim, where it talks about kilayim. It says beged kilayim shatnez, losilbash semra pishtam yachtav, losilbash beged kilayim shatnez semra pishtam yachtav. You shouldn't wear a garment that has linen and wool mixed together. Shatnez. So the Gemara, the end of the Mishnah in Kilayim, the end of the Masechus Kilayim, darshan shua tavi v'nuz. Shua means that it's combed, it's smooth, it's combed. Tavi, it's spun, and nuz, shazur. Like we're talking about the three things we're talking about here in the Shulchan Aruch about winding the strings. All three things are mentioned by Kilayim. It says you shouldn't do that normally. And then it says the next pasuk, Gedilim Tasalach, and the Gemara in Yevamos, the beginning learns Esei Dochalose from here. The fact that the two pasukim are next to each other. It tells you Gedilim Tasalach, Gedilim. You see the Shulchan Aruch here in Seminal. Gedil is, he says clearly, Gedil means the extra beged, the extra fabric that wasn't woven properly at the end of when you weave a beged. You have to close it. If it wasn't woven properly, it's Gedilim. Gedilim Tasalach, and that's the sitzis. Gedilim Tasalach is a sitzis. This Gemara on Daf Tet, it's clear, according to Rashi, according to most poskim, that we're talking about the tzitzis are not something that are in a hole and are hanging from the tzitzis. It's just finishing off the corners of the garment, a four-cornered garment. You're making the weave, it was a weak weave at the end, you're making it strengthening and you're finishing the beged. You're finishing it, and that says for tzitzis, for the purpose of tzitzis, where there's a mitzvah of tzitzis, you should do it, you could do it, and maybe you should do it with samer pishtim, like Shua Tavi Vanuz, which is all the things that we talked about needing Lishma, Tvia Lishma, Shazira Lishma, and Shua, which is the Niputz, which is the Komet Lishma. All those things you're not supposed to do by Kilai, you're supposed to do by the Tzitzis. So what's going on over here? I'd like to suggest, according to Rashi and most poskim, the Rambam had a different explanation over here, but we really do pass on like Rav, Shua Tavi Vanuz, and that's what it's talking about. Like Rashi's explanation, and that's the tzitzis. And what is the case of tzitzis? I come out a big chiddush over here that the reason you're not supposed to use kilayim, besemer pishtim, it's used normally. Wool and linen are woven together or stitched together in fancy socks and collars. It's not a very strong connection, but it's a very soft and supple connection. And it's used for very fine places where your neck wants to, needs to be sort of stiff, but at the same time needs to be soft and supple to bend with your neck, in the collar of a fancy suit, or in socks where you want your feet to be snug in the socks, but at the same time you want to be able to control them to have movement. I think what it's talking about, tzitzis are not strings that you attach to your tzitzis. Tzitzis are, the revolutionary thing I'm saying over here is that they're actually the edge of a specific garment. I would say it's referring to underwear. Say it if you know what thongs are, and something like a thong with 4 corners. That's supposed to, if you have a thong with 4 corners, it's supposed to 3 or 5 corners. You wouldn't mix it as proper thong for men and women. Women are chayav and tzitzis. The Gemara we'll see later. The Gemara in Sukkah says that a man was making tzitzis for his wife, thong for underwear. Supposed to make the corners with semer or pishtim. It's not just a heter. It's actually the mitzvah is to make a semer of pishtim. In those places, you should make semer of pishtim, and you should do it shuat tavi news. You should do it in a way that's spun and if the more if it's combed and it's spun very well and it's the shema. It doesn't mean that it's the same mitzvah. The shema means that you're doing it extra carefully. You're producing it in a very meticulous way. That you're doing it. You're spinning it. You make sure to spin it. You make sure to comb it, and you make sure to wind it very well so that it's very soft and supple yet strong. And use seminal fishing in that place because that is a perfect place. You use it just like fancy socks and just like a collar or an expensive suit to put it in that place, and then seal tchelis, it would be the wrapping around your waist. You'd use tchelis, a blue greenish type of string to wrap it around your waist, the thong, where the piece of fabric hangs from, and that you could see on top of your pants or whatever under your shirt. Like we said before, the tchelis is on the outside, the love on the inside. To be a new revolutionary explanation of tzitzis that has nothing to do with strings hanging down. It's kind of a big chiddush over here. And to be a lishma doesn't mean you have to do it l'shem mitzvah, just to be meticulous, to make sure you're doing it. Shmuel says that even the tzviya has to be lishma. Yeah, Shmuel says, he says even the tzviya has to be lishma. Maybe we'd pass on Shmuel, maybe we're not passing. Without Shmuel, you're supposed to do it in a very meticulous way to make sure that it's strong and supple at that point. And that is the mitzvah of tzitzis. It's supposed to be in that area to make underwear in the right way, a more attractive type of underwear. I don't know how to say this in Medrash, but this is, I think, the mitzvah of tzitzis. Chartan is called mitzvah Hashem. This is the purpose of mitzvah Hashem. Attractive underwear, attractive in the bedroom. I can't believe I said this, but I did say it. I think it's true. Bye.